Welcome to my home and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Robin Black, but you know that there's no possible way you're watching this if you've never heard of me. If you haven't, I'm a dude who loves martial arts and studied martial arts my whole life. And I like to take questions and I like to sort of answer them, but also just use them as a tool to go dig up some weird ideas and think out loud and see what we can learn. So let's do that. Let's get right into some questions. All right, people have been sending me a lot of great questions. I really like this one. I'm going to first read the question, then tell you my thoughts before I answer it. At King Toad 1987, Joe Rogan with Katana, that's a sword, Japanese sword, versus Khabib, who wins? Okay, I love this question. And you may notice if you've watched a bunch of these and or my lives, the last couple of years, I've actually been consuming less and less and less sort of mainstream fighting, you know, and looking at it less. I will watch Alex Pereira fight, but I won't watch the TV show every week all the way through. I often will watch these things later without volume. I'm just not following sort of the very mainstream of fighting very much. I've found it's really expanded my thinking a lot and allowed me to look at things in very different ways. So people do send in, you know, what's your Mount Rushmore of fighters, who's the GOAT, and what'll happen if, what do you think about John Jones versus whatever? And that's just not where I'm at right now. And it's not out of any type of judgment or dislike. It's just, I'm on a different trip. And so I just haven't been answering. I get a few of these, but I just haven't been answering this guy versus this guy. What do you think? Or what's your prediction on this? It's just not the vibe I'm laying down right now. But if you're going to send me like crazy weird ones, I'm going to totally dig into it. If you're going to send me like, things that sound strange, I'm going to dig into them real and try to look at them with a real lens. So let's look at this. Joe Rogan with Katana versus Khabib. All right. So a weapon change fighting dramatically, which is why I love this question. So what is a weapon, right? What is especially a weapon like a sword or a club or a stick or nunchucks, whatever. It's an extension of the hand, right? Now, any weapon is an extension of the hand. I'm looking around for weapons, but if I had a stick, that is, of course, an extension of the hand. What does that mean? That means from places that I can reach you with my tool, you cannot reach me, right? That's a stick. Right, so let's just pretend it's Joe Rogan with a stick versus Khabib. There are just too many advantages here. Joe Rogan with a stick will know exactly what he wants to do, which is stay at distance, get Khabib to chase, hit him, move laterally. The environment would matter, of course. If we're in a football field or in a park, Joe Rogan with a stick against Khabib all day long, Joe Rogan's going to smash up Khabib with a stick, right? Distance, long stick in particular. Now, could Khabib eventually close the distance where he can be hit with a stick into the range where he can grab Joe Rogan? Sure, it's possible. And if he does that, he's going to be able to get him down and hurt him and strangle him and elbow him, although Joe knows what he's doing on the ground too. Also, Khabib will not be Khabib training. This would be Khabib right now, I'm thinking. Like right now this happens, right? So Joe's probably fitter than Khabib at this exact moment. No disrespect. But just a fitness freak. And Khabib has a lot of things going on in life. I'm sure he still loves to train, and I'm sure he still does train. But he's been a retired athlete for a long time. Most retired athletes are not as fit as they were when they were athletic. So we got Joe with a stick. Pretty good, right? When you have a bladed weapon, when you have a sword, there's a whole different level now, right? Now you've got a sword. Not only can, at the distance at which you have to travel, 2 full body lengths to be able to reach me. And not only can I hit you, but when I do, I cut you. A sword involved in a fight, there are so many places where you can be cut and the artery will just spray the blood. It isn't just even we can chop off your leg or remove part of your hand. Imagine now Joe Rogan with a katana versus Khabib with one hand, the other one spraying blood, right? Most people, many people with a katana are going to beat the best fighter in the world in a regular, many super fit people who know martial arts, I'm sorry, are going to be able to, with a sword, are going to be able to beat George St. Pierre or Khabib. Sword, when you elevate a fight with a weapon, and of course now we can go down the rabbit hole of weapons for weeks and months if we want to, because now we get into ranged weapons. A gun or any other ranged weapon sends a projectile through the space that you have to travel all the way through that space as I'm shooting projectiles at you, right? Sword is not quite as dangerous, but conceptually the tip of the sword is still so far away and so able to cut you. So Joe Rogan with a katana versus Khabib, I'm going to give Joe Rogan by death like 83 times out of 100. Definitely send me more weird questions like this. I'm not going to probably choose questions where, you know, it's about whatever matchup is happening next weekend, because I may not be dialed into that, but I'm definitely going to answer more questions like this. All right. At that blind ginger, do you think grounded knees or soccer kicks should be allowed in all commissions? When you ask me about all commissions, I make the assumption, and I'm not always making this assumption anymore because I'm working in so many different rule sets now, and I'm most interested in the different rule sets. I love the game-bred bare-knuckle MMA. You know, you change that one thing subtly and remove the gloves, changes it dramatically. I love bare-knuckle boxing. Commissions covering bare-knuckle boxing, should they allow grounded knees and soccer kicks? Well, no, right? I'm assuming you're talking about MMA. I'm here to tell, my short answer is yes. Grounded knees and soccer kicks, I think, would make MMA better. But I'm actually at the point, just personally, this is a personal preference. This isn't a declaration of what's better or worse, but I'm actually not finding MMA to be my favorite rule structure anymore at all. I like particular MMA. I like MMA by region and what has little different flavors and textures and colors and stuff. But in general, if you're just going to give me, you know, a large cage in a big arena, you know, on ESPN with, you know, another couple of really high-end fighters from different places on earth fighting in that context, I'm actually not as interested in that as I once was. I'm hoping I will be again. I'm hoping as we go through this era of really fascinating different types of fighting environments and different types of fighting rule structures that I'll find my way back to it. It isn't just the MMA rule set. For me, what's actually I'm finding less joyful is the North American presentation of just MMA in a cage in an arena. I've just seen so much of it. And although the fighters change and the martial arts change, over time, a lot of what's happened in MMA has migrated towards, you know, eliciting reactions from the audience. We are not actually seeing the best martial arts performances anymore. In some cases, because the fighters are being so incentivized to fight recklessly, to fight, you know, not to make the best decision based on winning a fight, but to make a decision based on exciting the audience and begging for $50,000 and no judgment. In a tough environment where you're being underpaid, $50,000, making this strategically and purposefully deciding as an athlete to pursue $50,000 2 or 3 extra times a year makes a big difference to your life. So I get it. And I'm not, certainly this is not a judgment of the martial artists and the athletes. It never is. I'm never judging them. They're doing what they can do. I'll take Michael Chandler, for instance. Now, besides the fact that at the time of talking about this here, he has not yet fought Conor McGregor, that's besides the point. That's, you know, the business strategy of trying to wait for somebody. You can give it 2020 all you want. Oh, well, you know, he's been waiting, whatever. Hey, could have happened, right? And he would have loved it. But Michael Chandler came into the UFC at a stage of his life where he is trying to make money for his family, create a platform environment where he can do the things he loves to do, motivate and inspire other people and build his own Michael Chandler brand. The logical way to do that was fight a little more recklessly, something he's actually quite good at. It's not reckless necessarily as a fair thing, but would really kind of let it all hang out a little bit. And it has worked for him. It worked for him leading right into this Conor McGregor fight. If that happens or doesn't happen, you see what the strategy was. We don't need to win every fight. Michael Chandler could win a lot of fights, quote, boring. And as a martial arts purist, I'd kind of rather see that. Now, people are right now going, what the hell are you talking about? I'd way rather see these crazy fight of the night style fights. That's up to you. I'm not judging you. By all means, you like what you like and you don't like what you don't. I get to do that too. I want to see the best martial strategy and tactics and approach to it. I love martial arts. I don't love highlights, although I use highlights to analyze martial arts. I don't love crazy moments. I'm not in it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm saying those things just because I'm a person. I get to like what I like. I don't love like crazy knockouts, although sometimes I find them fascinating. I'm not watching this for like, the crazy, spectacle. I'm not watching it for spectacle. I'm watching it out of just my own weird love of martial arts. So I get to have that. I'm not telling you by no means do I want to tell you what you should like or not like. But I would rather see a fighter, personally, figure out the way to give themselves less harm and win a fight. Because that's the way I like to view martial arts. It's a different way. It's okay. My way's okay. Your way's okay. But so Michael Chandler consciously, I haven't spoken to him about this, although we're friends, I admire him very much. He consciously would have looked at his path and said, if I go in there and I put myself in harm's way and I take some risks, I may not win them all, but I'm going to build a bigger audience. I'm going to make a good amount of money at this chapter of my life, and I'm going to create chances of things like the ability to fight Conor McGregor and stuff like that. If that's a conscious decision, and I'm pretty sure it is, good for him. That's brilliant. Like, this is his life. He gets to look at it. And whatever you decide to do, whatever path you decide to take in life, if it's conscious and it's intentional and it's your choice, do it. Do it. So I, as a fan of Michael Chandler and a friend and somebody who enjoys watching him fight and cheers for him as a person, good, Mike. Because I know that was conscious, right? But also as a purist, I would love to see him just go in, take somebody down, elbow them, exhaust them, choke them out in round 4 and be unhurt. But he gets to do it his way. And I get to like what I like, and so do you. So we're all good, right? But I think the whole thing would open up a little more. I think the whole thing, change, I think, is very good. Change is good. Change is constant. Change is happening right now for you and me and everywhere at all times, whether you know it or not. To change with change is the changeless state. If you want things to stay the same, you have to change. If you want things to change, you really have to change. Or don't change, and they'll change, and you'll be the same. But this is life, right? But if we opened it up with grounded knees, soccer kicks, it would change every environment. Why I'm less jazzed about watching, MMA on a Saturday night than I used to be is it's very formulaic. The fighting is individual, and I love the fighting, but the presentation and the packaging and the rhythm and the colors and the sounds and in the words and stuff, it's so repetitive. And some people love repetition. Some people love the comfort of it. I don't. I like weird stuff. I like things that change. I like things that are unpredictable. And if you change that, or you change the time limit, you maybe made no time limit. I also really think if you could, we're pretty attached to this cage now, but doesn't that cage kind of look a little dated? I think it's time maybe we could try. And I don't think the UFC or PFL or Bellator or one, they're in a position where not only can they, but they should probably innovate a little more. But if somebody changes that, makes it a clear environment, or changes it completely, just says, hey, fights are not happening in a cage right now. Feels a little, something about it. I get it. That environment, we've all, there's not as much innovation happening against the corners and against the cage. It's sort of been figured out how to stall it and then move it back to the middle and swang and bang, right? Anyways, there's just the whole picture of it right now. I like traveling to Europe and Asia and around MMA and consuming it from there because the presentation is a little different. The identity is a little different. It's a little less repetitive. It's a little less, MMA. This is how, when I talk about karate combat, which I love, I like to say, boxing was kind of old and stodgy and sort of formulaic and corporate. And then the UFC came along and it was cool and edgy and counterculture. And after 20 odd years, it became a little stodgy and corporate and repetitive and formulaic. Now you got karate. Now you got karate combat. Now you got, bare knuckle MMA, Jorge Masvidal's show. Now you got bare knuckle boxing, BYB and BKB. Now you got these other things, right? And they are more counterculture and edgy and for the people who like something different. And that will happen in every field, in every art, in every science, always. And that's okay. It's part of life. At the real Ravi Ladwa, what is the best martial art for children? Talked about this a lot in different ways with different fighters and coaches and friends and martial artists. I've said this on this YouTube channel that the best school for you or your child is the one closest to your house. The best martial arts school, I've said this before, is the one closest to your house. I'll very quickly recap. Attendance is going to be the most important variable for how well you do. And you're going to attend the one that's easiest to get to, that has the least resistance to get to. If you go for 6 months or a year and you're really into martial arts, you're going to learn about other things. You're going to have other questions. You might be at a karate school and suddenly realize, I think I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Maybe you'll move then. But now you'll have created a habit through which you could now explore other things. You start close to your house. But beyond that, Faraz Zahabi and I sat down and chatted about this once. He has sons. I have a daughter. And those things, of course, there's differences. But I remember he was talking about his sons and he's like, my sons are wrestling. And I said, why? And he said, well, the physicality of it, but also the little bit of resistance and the little bit of tension and the little bit of struggle. He liked that. It made a lot of sense to me. And I introduced, when we were chatting about this, I said, I think of my first martial art as a kid is gymnastics. And he was like, and he right away was like, yeah. And he said, if I had a daughter, I would offer her wrestling or gymnastics. With my sons, I like the extra struggle of wrestling. It was like, that's his personal view, as well as, it makes sense to me, like a little struggle for a young boy, I think could be a good thing. And girl, he also said he would offer that if he had a daughter. Personally, I love gymnastics as a root of any type of athletic endeavor. I think it is, my daughter is 2.5, and right from 2 or a month or 2 before 2, I would take her to parent-taught gymnastics. It is the cutest thing in the world. It is the cutest, and she loves it. And I loved it, right? So we'll keep doing that. Gymnastics teaches you to be aware of your body, teaches you to understand your body, space, balance, proprioception, all of these fundamental things. Wrestling does too, but you get the added benefit of the fear and the conflict and the push and the tension of it, right? And the struggle. Right. There's struggle in all things, and that's the beauty of it. So my daughter's already doing gymnastics. And then at 3, my friend Crew Joe has a program for kids, Muay Thai. So my daughter, I hope she never fights anybody, ever. But definitely am going to encourage martial arts because it's made my life infinitely better. I can't imagine what my life would be without it. But also I want her to be able to protect herself. I don't want her to fight anybody. I don't want her to get in a ring or a cage or any of these things. But I do want, if somebody's trying to hurt her, I want her to be able to protect herself. But I won't force it. But truthfully, sometimes we create these things. What's the best X, Y, or Z. Just start doing it, you know? The best martial art for your kid is the one right down the street. Go there, go there. Make sure you check out. If you can stay, great. That would be the ideal. If you, especially the younger that they are, and you know, you're going to do some research into who these people are, that's going to deal with your children in any way. Teachers, people in any type of extracurricular, we're always doing that, right? We're always going to do that. We're going to be sure of who we leave our kids with, everything we can know about them. But beyond that, which you will do anyways, the martial art closest to your house is a good place to go. But yes, wrestling, gymnastics. My daughter's doing gymnastics now, and I think of gymnastics as a root of martial artistry. Okay, we try to end on something positive every time, despite the fact, and I've said this the last couple of weeks in a row, whole vibe's been positive lately. There's something about getting to do this that just makes me feel good. But I like this one, at SSToyan, S. Stoyan. Any advice for someone who struggles to push past mediocrity? That's a really, I take that as a very serious question, and I want to express the answer with as much honesty and empathy that I can. It's a really serious. To me, that's a serious question. If you asked me about, failure, I will encourage you to do things and fail and study the feeling, but also do it again. But mediocrity, to me, is a real tough spot. I think the very first powerful piece of optimism we have here is you asked the question. I think already most people who are finding themselves in any, first of all, mediocrity is going to be somewhat subjective, right? Because, and it's fair to look at this too. You might say, look at the world that you're living in and what you're doing as, you're struggling to push past mediocrity. But first identify where you really are, right? Do you have food and shelter? Do you have water? Do you have air? Do you have some people around you that will care about you? And especially if you are generous with them and spend some time with them and care about them, do you have the freedom and ability to get up today and make some decisions in your own life? Do you have the ability to create things no matter what they are? Do you have a pen? Do you have a pencil? Do you have a voice? Do you have your body? I mean, already, if we look at that truthfully, already we are in the top 10% of any humans who's ever lived, and maybe top 1% if we include, human history, right? We're in the top couple percent ever. I've made this reference recently, but there was a comedian I saw the other day, and he pointed out that hot showers didn't exist 65 years ago or whatever. They just didn't exist. There just was no such thing. This thing's incredible. Do you have one of these? Some version of this? Because if you have one of these, there's an amazing amount of information and technology and learning and artistic creation that you can do. I mean, so sometimes we're going to start, honestly, when you're asking about pushing past mediocrity, be honest about where you really are. Are we just being a little bit negative? And are we creating expectations that were built? Maybe we're spending too much time on this. We go on to Instagram or something, and there's a lot of really handsome people driving really expensive cars, doing really amazing things. Is that real? Because if you're comparing yourself to that, that's not really, you're not living in mediocrity. Like I said, just asking this question means you're already not living in a state of mediocrity. The real thing that I think we want to achieve right now in this world, I think our root thing that we want to think about is that if you aren't being intentional with what you want, if you aren't being, and I don't mean like The Secret or like just what do you want to do right now? What do you want to do? If you're doing anything that you didn't consider, and scrolling's a really tough one, you got to turn off all notifications. If you get nothing else from ever watching this YouTube channel, turn off every notification on your phone. You don't want the world, you don't want this device, you don't want your tools controlling you. You don't want the things you consume. There's 2 strawberries on this. My daughter puts those on, and whenever I take them off, she pulls them out of this little bluey book and goes, put strawberry on daddy's phone, and it's the cutest thing, so I leave them. You don't want your phone to control you. You don't want the things you watch to control you. You don't want to watch a screen and it sells you a pill for restless leg syndrome and gets you to really like some bad food and gets you to, the main thing that you can do is just start to be intentional. And the first intention is look at the intention of being intentional. Where am I? What am I doing? What did I do yesterday? How much of that was by choice? And how much of that was a default of the world getting me to do stuff? I got up, I looked at my phone. My emails were open, now I'm trapped in work. Then the thing was done and my wife or my daughter or my boyfriend or my girlfriend said something and now I've snapped at them. And then I realized I was on the thing, but then I sat down, I turned on some other thing. How much of that are you doing, right? And we got to start small. Right? If we really look at it and we go, okay, wait a second, my life is not what I want it to be. The goal now is, what could it be in 4 months, 4 days, 4 months, 4 years, 10 years, if I start taking back be a little conscious about it? What am I doing? Did I choose to do that? How much of this was shaped by Facebook or the news or whatever? Turn off all your notifications. Turn off all the news. Turn it off. Frank Zappa said, news is the entertainment division of the military-industrial complex. Holy shit, that's brilliant. What does that mean? It means the the complex through which the world is working, through which they're, controlling society, shaping how things go. This is a part of the world. We're not mad at it. We know that this is part of it. It's like the weather. We're not freaking out about the fact that the world is sometimes beyond our control and that there are forces in the world that are things that we, don't really understand. Okay, that's part of the world, okay? We know that that is. We will try to change it as best we can, but we will not let it freeze us. In that part of the world that we don't understand and is kind of sometimes trying to make sure that society runs a certain way and people behave a certain way and whatever, we got to keep people entertained. Circus and, and keep their attention. News is the entertainment division of the military-industrial complex, meaning we'll keep you sitting there and we'll get you guys arguing about this guy and this guy, but he did this and now they're going to he quit and then this guy got all of it. News is a way to control you. You feel like you're out in the world doing, being engaged in important things, but that's the feeling that it's trying to get you to have. You got to turn that off. As soon as you turn off the news, as soon as you turn off your notifications, the world suddenly and you go outside, you see the leaves moving, you see the grass moving. If you're near water, you see the waves moving. And all of a sudden, those things that are dominating your thinking start to go. You take a walk. Start with a walk. Any advice for somebody? Start with a walk. Take a long walk. Walk every day. While you're walking, notice your thoughts. How much of those thoughts come and go? This is another piece of advice I'd like to pass on. Somebody said to me recently, I don't know where I heard this, but it was like, you can't stop a thought from appearing, but you don't have to invite it in and sit it down and offer it dinner. Thoughts are popping in and out of your head. Sometimes because of what you watched, sometimes because of what you read, sometimes because of what the notification did, sometimes because of the commercial, sometimes because of the environment around. You got to clear your head. You got to clear your thoughts, right? You got to clear your mind. And it's not easy, and your mind will never be fully clear. Thoughts will come and go, but notice that they come and go, and notice that they do not define you, and you do not have to get trapped in a loop of them. You allow them to come and go. I like Tai Chi. It's a type of moving meditation. Some people like yoga. Some people learn to meditate. Some people listen to music. Some people run. But you got to start to do these things. Once you start to do these things, you see the grass move, and you see the leaves move, and you see the animals running, and you start to see the world a little more truly as it is. You see how lucky you are. You see how you start to develop a bit of gratitude. Once you can just get there, that's actually very hard to do in today's world. And I'm telling you about it because I'm conscious of it. And it happens to me Happens to all of us. You have to go back and reset. What am I going to do? How do I clear all this stuff out? Once you clear it out, you can slow down enough and say, am I consciously deciding what I want to do? Chase decided to come here. I decided to sit and express ideas and share them. Later, we're going to go for lunch. We're deciding these things. Sometimes your brain is just taking over, and it's a very, very stressful world that we're living in, very complex, a lot of moving parts. And people don't realize it's not like it was 10 years ago, and it's not like it was 10 years before. These are true hazards, things that shape your day and your thoughts and stuff. You got to release them. So important. If you can get to a point that you release them slowly, you can watch your behavior a little bit. How much of my day is being intentional? And then, okay, not much. Wow. Okay. Well, we're going to start with a little. Get up in the morning, don't look at our phone, go for a walk. Do that for 10 days. All of a sudden, everything's going to change, right? Everything's going to change. That'll allow you to add something else. Oh, and you can be a little exercise, a little air. You got to start with small things. There was a book that I really, really like, actually. And let me try to leave you with a recommendation that I think may help. It's small, but we got to read too. We got to read. And yes, podcasts are great. I don't know if this is a podcast. It might be on Apple iTunes right now. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe by this point we're putting it on a podcast. So you're listening or you're watching. There's value in podcasts. I feel like I'm trying my best to give you some value right now. But beyond that, we have to read, because a podcast is the best I can give you in this moment. The best I'm trying to give you my best. A book is something we may have spent years refining and re-refining and putting together with every idea and then, interpreting it. And it is the best of years of curation and preparation. Books are really special. Podcasts and videos do not replace books. They are in addition to. But so you got to carve out a piece, 20 minutes a day to read. But read this book. I don't know who wrote it. He's a famous writer, and this is quite a famous book, so it's not some rare book. It's called Atomic Habits. And Atomic Habits is literally like, we're going to just start with little things. You want to change your life in 4 days or 4 weeks or 4 months or 4 years, we'll start with small things, done over and over, with some amount of deliberate intention and a lot of, really staying with it until things become habits. And once something's a habit, we can add another habit. And man, a daily walk, 20 minutes of reading a day, 10 glasses of water, and 10 minutes of meditation, that's 40 minutes of your day. And in those 40 minutes, you're not scrolling. You just change your life. You literally change your life. But don't do all of them at one time. Add one of them. And then once you've done it for 6 weeks, add another, and add another. You can change your life 100%. 100%. Every person can change their life, but it's tiny things. Tiny, tiny things. The real weird part is we all know what they are. We all literally know what they are. If you really, truly want your life to be different with your intention, a little exercise, more water, better sleep, less alcohol or cannabis or whatever. We know these things. We all know them. But start with one of them. And then you can change your life. Everybody can. Every single person has the ability to make one small change and keep it for 6 weeks and then add another. That's how you're going to do it. And list some of these out. That book is a really good one. But list which one of these are you going to add? You're going to add a walk every day? That's a good one because it feeds the other things. You're going to add 10 minutes of writing down in the morning what you're grateful for? That's a good one. You're going to do 10, 12 cups, glass of water a day? That one you should just add in addition to whatever else you add. You can do 20 minutes of reading a day. I like nonfiction, but fiction's really valuable too. Really, really gets the brain working in different ways. I mean, just those. Your life's different. Mediocrity is behind you. No, the middle of the pack doesn't do those things. And you want to get real fancy, add a cold plunge. There's lots, right? Lots of small things, one at a time. Change your life. I love you guys. And I'm really, really, really thankful I get to do this. And I'm thankful for you to watch. Enjoy the hostilities, man.